Hey guys, it's Chris, and I'm back with another Game of Thrones prequel video. So we have an update that came across Twitter. An account called Godlike Locations, and I will put the link in the description below to that account, released some pictures recently about the new Game of Thrones prequel working under the title Blood Moon. Now, of course, we don't know if that's going to remain the name. George R. R. Martin, of course, wanted to call this The Long Night, but it is set during the Age of Heroes, and this seems to confirm that, but with some very interesting questions because of what we see in these photos. So let's jump right in and check out what we have so far for the Game of Thrones prequel, working title, Blood Moon. Also, let me thank my newest Patreons. Thank you to Cornelius, thank you to Heinous, and thank you to Sensible for the upgrade. I really appreciate the support. You guys keep this channel going. So anyway, in this first little picture here, we do see a Viking-like ship. So the first men were very much Viking-like, apparently. We see a couple guys here. They do seem to be in costume. There were some previous pictures where they were just in regular clothes, kind of testing it out. And we have seen other pictures where they are being towed by bards. But as you can see here, they do have oars, and it's very much a Viking-style design. So very interesting that the first men are being depicted a lot like the Vikings. And here's another shot of the same boat as well. As you can see, they're being towed here. They are in costume, it looks like. Maybe this is a test run. I don't think they're actually filming in this particular scene, as no one is actually rowing and there are no sails on the ship. But of course, the interesting part here is this sigil. Now, if we zoom in and take a closer look at this sigil, it looks to be an older version of the Stark direwolf. I don't really think it can be anything else. We have the gray and the white as well, but this looks to be the first or older sigil of the Stark direwolf. So this seems to be Starks at sea, which is very interesting to say the least, to have actual Stark ships since they're not known to be sea bears. That's something more like the Iron Board will be known for, but then again, this is a small vessel, and not saying that all major houses don't have vessels parked somewhere in other regions that they do control. But of course, we know the Starks of being around Winterfell up north and not near any seas, so it's very interesting that we are seeing Starks at sea here, if that in fact is what this sigil is. But I can't see it being anything else. This is going to obviously follow some major houses, and George R. R. Martin did come out with a little information the other day and said we will see the Starks. So this is a little surprising, honestly, because we thought this was going to take place during the beginning of the Age of Heroes, and the show would likely end during the Long Night, which ended the Age of Heroes. But apparently, if this is the pilot, we're already well into the Age of Heroes here. So I think it's very cool that we see this older Stark sigil and that it's changed over the years, which makes sense. I think things are naturally updated over time. But again, this goes well past the coming of the first men over the Arm of Dorne, as we've been told in history. And again, remember, in history, we don't have a lot of information to go off of. There's literally just a couple paragraphs of written history in the World of Ice and Fire, for example, and just a handful of sentences, honestly, in the whole book series that references these times. So we don't know a lot about it, but we are told in the World of Ice and Fire in general how things went. So again, this is well past the coming of the first men over the Arm of Dorne. This is well into Westerosi civilization, if the Starks are already around in the north and have a sigil for that matter. So we may see the founding of House Stark with Brandon the Builder, as we talked about before. Perhaps Brandon of the Bloody Blade is the founder, and it wasn't really Brandon the Builder at all. And I've always said I think Brandon of the Bloody Blade is the guy who becomes the Night King, hashtag Proto-Stark. But we see that this is well into the time of already taking Sea Dragon Point, killing the Warg King, and acquiring the Children of the Forest DNA and their warging abilities, because they already have the Stark direwolf as their sigil. Otherwise, there would be no sigil of a direwolf. They wouldn't have taken that as their house sigil if they already didn't have warging abilities. So this is well past the time of them coming and warring with the children. So it looks like they're going to be at a time of peace with the children at this point, after the pact was signed at some point. Not to say there's still not war going on between other men, but at least the children and the first men, at least the Starks, look to be at peace at this point, because otherwise, again, they would not have a direwolf as their sigil if they had not already gone to war with the children, and then later on in history destroyed the so-called Warg King and obtained that warging ability from the Children of the Forest DNA. And of course, that means the pact has already been signed, and therefore the Night King has already been created during this shot here of this new show. And again, this is all according to the World of Ice and Fire, but during the Age of Heroes, this is where it said there were hundreds of kingdoms, many houses rose and fell during that time period, and a lot of legends were born. We've heard names like Garth Greenhand, Land the Clever, Serwyn of the Mirror Shield, who was said to be a member of the Kingsguard, by the way. And of course, the Kingsguard wasn't formed until around 300 years ago, after Aegon the Conqueror had settled in as King of Westeros. So obviously you can't have a member of the Kingsguard thousands of years before the Kingsguard were created. Another example of this is Simon Staraz being described as a knight long before the time there were actual knights or a Faith of the Seven, which came much later to Westeros with the Andals. So you can't have a knight before there were knights, and you certainly can't have a member of the King's Guard before there was a King's Guard. So the little history we do know, it seems, is not as clear-cut as some may think. So it's very interesting to see these early days of Westeros and to see if some of these so-called legendary heroes were heroes at all. Anyway guys, that's the update we have on the Blood Moon prequel series to Game of Thrones. I'm sure we'll get a lot of history as well, since this is going to be probably during the end of the Age of Heroes, I'm assuming, just by having Starks already established. Anyway guys, let me know what you think in the comments below. As usual, thank you for all the support, especially you guys on Patreon, and a huge shout out to my executive Patreon SmokeScreen producers. And if you dig what I do here, please give these videos a like, comment, and share. And of course, be sure to subscribe to get everything, and click that notification bell so you're notified when I drop a new video. So thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time.